Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschyatyade Jatarne. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vanchakapatrilibhyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha padidanam bhavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. So, Hare Krishna, devotees. Hare Krishna to all of you. Thank you for coming. This evening we are going to go through the questions on verse 9. As always, we have quite a few questions, but not quite as many as the last few verses, so we don't have to really rush quite as much, but we got, it looks like 22 questions pretty much. All right, so let us try to answer your questions. First question, well, from Instagram first. Last time there was a question, can all the stages of bhakti manifest in parallel, but to a different degree, depending on what level of spiritual development is this level of the devotee? So if it's true, how does it work in practice? You know, the thing is this, a very important point, that when you go from Shraddha, the first stage, to Sadhu Sangha, it is not that you leave Shraddha. You take Shraddha with you, and your Shraddha increases actually. And then when you go from Sadhu Sangha to Bhajana Kriya, like more serious engagement in Krishna consciousness, you don't leave your Sadhu Sangha or your Shraddha behind. You take them with you, and they develop further. And you get the idea in principle, I think. So, like this, when you come to prema, you have the deepest Shraddha. You have the most amazing Sadhu Sangha, most amazing Bhajana Kriya. So like this. So it's sort of, the question is to some degree not quite the right question, although it's not bad. It's, it's basically a good idea. Yeah, so in other words, on all stages of bhakti, you will see symptoms of the previous stages. I think it's a pretty straightforward point. But the main thing you'll see is the symptoms of the particular stage, the main stage that the devotee is on now. Not as much will you see symptoms of the previous stages. But definitely you'll see very prominently symptoms of the current stage. And you'll see prominently symptoms of the other stages also. Like a good devotee on the level of Bhajana Kriya will chant their rounds very seriously. A good devotee on the level of Ruchi, it's the third level beyond Bhajana Kriya. That devotee will also very seriously, even more seriously, chant their rounds. It's not they'll drop their rounds, but they'll chant more seriously because now they're on the higher level. So it will be a manifestation of their chanting will include manifestations of their being on a higher level. like chanting their rounds in ecstasy on the level of bhava. The ecstasy is from the bhava. The chanting of the rounds is from bhajana kriya. I mean, in a basic sense. Okay. Aha. Now, there's a question. Let me just read it quickly. The devotees, do you have copies of the questions? You got? Okay, so you can just read them. I can read them quickly. Right, so in a class in Melbourne in 1975, Srila Prabhupada said, the devotees in the spiritual world can change their bodies. For example, a form of a flower to a form of a human being. There are no limitations. If a devotee wants to render a service to Krishna as a cow, then he does it as a cow or as a calf, a plant, water, earth, field, a mother, a father, a friend, or a beloved one. This means the all-powerful aspect of Krishna, spiritual life. So that's taken apparently from this lecture by Prabhupada it's the 6th canto, chapter 6, verse 1, 1975. So my question is, it is easy to change body, and what about rasa? Does it change while changing the body, or the living being is always in the same rasa eternally? Well, I know from what you've just cited for us from Prabhupada's class, obviously Prabhupada is saying that people can change and people sometimes do. And that's there in our literatures. However, from the records in our literatures, such things happening, changing rasa in the spiritual world, is rare. It's very rare. In fact, I am not aware in Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, our main literatures, I am not aware of someone actually changing their rasa. I'm aware of at least a couple of incidents in which devotees tried to change their rasa, but they couldn't, because they're too absorbed in their rasa. I'll just give you I'll give you both examples. Lakshmi Devi, who is in, sort of servitude with some conjugal, but anyway, it's a position as a wife with Narayan. She wanted to join the rasa dance, which means full conjugal, unmarried conjugal rasa. It's really a very different position. There's no dasya ras in it. There's dasya ras in Lakshmi Devi to some degree. So it's really quite a different position. So she tried by going to Vrindavan and performing austerities, but she failed. And in fact, we are told she is still there in Vrindavan at a place called Bailvan, and we visited her in, I think it was November last year. We visited Lakshmi. 5,000 years later, she's still doing her austerities, and she's failed to change her position because it's not easy. The other case is Murari Gupta in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Lord Chaitanya was a Ram Bhakta. He was very dedicated to Lord Ram. And Lord Chaitanya would joke with him that, come on, Radha and Krishna are higher. Come on, we're into Radha and Krishna, join us. And so Murari, it's in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Murari Gupta said, right, tonight I will give up Lord Ram and I will focus on Radha and Krishna. Yes, and I'll see you tomorrow. The next morning, he met Lord Chaitanya. He was crying. And he said, you ordered me to give up, Lord, to give up Sitaram, accept Radha Krishna, I couldn't do it. I tried. I really tried. I could not do it. I couldn't break my attachment to Lord Ram. So then Lord Chaitanya laughed and congratulated him and said, actually, you are Hanuman. So to my knowledge, these are the only two examples we have. I mean, it may be there are others that I don't know of or I've forgotten of, but at least these are definitely two very prominent examples. Lakshmi is very prominent. Murari Gupta is very prominent amongst the devotees of Lord Chaitanya. They tried, they couldn't, they failed. But in principle, and Krishna says and Prabhupada says, it can be done, there must be cases. How did it happen that Vallabha Bhatta changed his rasa from Vatsalya to Madhurya after associating with Gadadhar Pandit? Is it really that rasa changes? If it does, then why and for what it happens? Is it the wish of the living being or Krishna's wish? Well, let me start at the end. It would be the wish of the devotee to serve the Lord in that way, generally. And that's how Prabhupada expressed it in that class that we read the little bit from a few minutes ago. But, you know, Vallabha Bhatta changing his rasa, I don't know where you got that from. I don't know. I have researched. I found no evidence from Srila Prabhupada or even our acharyas going through, you know, the famous folio books on computer. I looked, couldn't find. If you have some evidence, show me. But otherwise, as far as I'm concerned, it seems it didn't happen. From our records, it seems that like that. So in the class on the 8th verse of Nectar of Instruction, we said it's very difficult to control the mind because there are a lot of impressions in it and they come up unexpectedly. That's right. Srila Prabhupada said that, actually. So now our devotee quotes Bhagavad Gita, the purport of 634. And, sure, it's a long quote. You know, I don't want to read the whole quote. We don't have so much time. So, but the question is that who controls the mind of the living entity? Who or what? The intelligence or the supersoul? Well, the intelligence with the empowerment of the supersoul controls the mind if the self is fixed in being a devotee. If we have decided I am a devotee and my life means serving Krishna and I won't do anything else, and if we are just fully situated like that, then we will engage our intelligence to engage our mind and thereby engage our senses and thereby do different devotional activities. And the supersoul will help. The supersoul will definitely help. Krishna will help. All right, here's another one. So, Srila Prabhupada's disciple, Mataji Radhakund, the wife of Yasomati Nandan Prabhu, saw a dream in which Srila Prabhupada said to her, "My books are the heart of Radhakund. If you want to please Srimati Radharani, then you should distribute my books and everybody will come and take bath in the heart of Radhakund." Did Prabhupada say anything like that? Live? No, but did he say anything like that? Well, you know, I would not. I know Yasomati Nandan Prabhu. I know him quite well, actually. The wife I know a little bit, not much. I've met her, put it that way. And she's basically a very sincere devotee who does a lot of book distribution. And if she says Prabhupada said that to her, I accept it. I don't think she would be trying to bluff us. You know, Prabhupada said many things sort of privately to a devotee, or even in situations with a number of devotees, but no one was recording. There are definitely such things. One thing I heard, a couple of things I heard, which I've searched for in the folio, they're just not there, but I definitely heard them from Prabhupada personally. So if she says that Prabhupada said that, I think you can just accept it. Yeah. I heard that Srila Prabhupada and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur took bath in Radhakund just by sprinkling 3 drops of water on their heads. They considered that touching the waters of Radhakund by foot, a person steps on Srimati Radharani's face and commits a big offense against her. Well, the question is what to do if you already took bath in Radhakund. Well, I'm aware that Prabhupada, I don't know about Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, Prabhupada, on the very few occasions that I'm aware of him visiting Radhakund, he just took some water on his head. But I'm also well aware that when I first went to India in 76, and it was for the Mayapur Vrindavan festival, when we all came from Mayapur to Vrindavan, and we're visiting different places every day around Vraj Mandala, Prabhupada said we could bathe in Radhakund, and we did. But some devotees jumped in and, created a disturbance. Then Prabhupada said not to after that. But then afterwards, as we understand, Prabhupada allowed it. And certainly it's there, we read it, from someone no less than Lord Chaitanya himself, Rupa Goswami himself. What can you say? Yeah. So, but it must be done in a very respectful way. Yeah. And one should offer one's obeisances and take water on one's head, then go in and not splash around, but just dip like that. So if you've already taken a bath in Radhakund like that, I think you're okay. I think you're doing good. If you took another type of bath, the splashing type, I don't think, that's a problem. And what to do? I think you should go to Radhakund, offer your obeisances and offer prayers to Radhakund. Yeah. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu found Radhakund and Shyamakund in the rice field, was the rice there also unusual and transcendental? Thank you. We need some, interesting questions to lighten things up a little from time to time. There's it's Vrindavan, that's the first thing. Anything growing in Vrindavan is very special. Devotee asked Prabhupada if the thorn trees in Vrindavan, there's a lot of them with nasty, quite long, sharp thorns. Are they wish-fulfilling trees? And Srila Prabhupada said yes. And we read yesterday, I don't know if you remember, we read verses about Vrindavan, glorifying Vrindavan. And, I could even have a look actually. But the devotee, Prabodhananda Saraswati, said that if we become envious, let me just have a very quick look if I can. Yeah. If one is a little bit inimical to even a blade of grass in Vrindavan, then who will be able to rescue him from the horrible hell that awaits him? When will that rescue occur? Yeah. So just the blades of grass, this exalted, elevated, pure personalities. And the rice too. Why not? Yeah. It's very, very special rice. And maybe it's a little more special too if it was growing like in Radhakund or Shyamakund. Maybe. But at the very least, it's very special simply because it's growing in Vrindavan. Is the hierarchy of the holy places compiled that we read yesterday according to the secrecy of Krishna's pastimes or the intensity of love that overwhelms the exalted devotees in these places? Well, it's not so much to do with the secrecy. It's more to do with the exchanges of love. Yeah. It's more to do with the exchanges of love that Krishna has with the devotees in these places. Yeah. Yes, so that's the point there. What level should a devotee be to tell Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan? Well, normally we stick to, like you've seen in the last few weeks, however long it's been, that we've been discussing Nectar of Instruction. I've been sticking to the philosophy, isn't it? Isn't it? To a very large degree. Yes. So that's generally our presentation. Not just pastimes and pastimes and pastimes. But if in a certain situation you feel inspired to tell a bona fide pastime, not just some, other pastime that you just heard from who knows where. And if you then tell it in an accurate, proper way, then you could even be a relatively new devotee. But otherwise, in general, we should stick to presenting Krishna's words before we get too much into presenting Krishna's pastimes. Yeah. Krishna's words, what he says, his philosophy. Right, so now we go to the questions from Facebook. When we do our devotional service, how can we distinguish spontaneous manifestation of love for Krishna from sentiments? Well, if we're actually coming to the point of developing a spontaneous attraction for Krishna, that's a very advanced level. That's a very advanced level. And so, when you come to that level, Krishna will tell you, Prabhupada will tell you, your spiritual master will tell you. That's how you'll know when you come to that level. You're not going to have to sit there and think, gosh, is it this or is it that? So, for the time being though, just follow the process nicely and try chanting from the heart in a mood of depending on Krishna, that without you, my Lord, what can I do? So chanting like that and serving, feeling I want to please the Lord. I want to please Prabhupada. I want to please my spiritual master and the devotees. Then you'll make very nice progress. If the soul's always happy, who is suffering inside the heart when something goes wrong? And who has taste? Who feels happy in devotional service when things are going well? Good question. Well, you know, the thing is, the soul is blissful. Satchit Ananda. But the soul is covered now. The soul is covered, and the soul is manifesting through the mind and the body, subtle body and gross body. But Krishna is experiencing all the things that we're experiencing. Yeah, Krishna is experiencing because he is the seat of our consciousness. You take Krishna out, there's no consciousness. So wherever there's consciousness, it's Krishna's consciousness. So therefore he is aware of what, not just of how we're feeling, but what we're feeling. Do all the sacred places have replicas in Mayapur Dham? If so, do they bring about the same result? Well, it's definitely said like that. And in fact, we know of a number of places, not a huge number, but some number. Kurukshetra we know of, Radhakund, Shamakund we know of, like that. So they may all be, they probably all are actually, but many of them are not manifest. The vast majority are not known of now. Since Radhakund is the liquid form of Radharani, what level of purity should a devotee be, does a devotee have to be on to take bath in it? You know, when we go there, when I go there with, and it's always or generally with a group of devotees, those devotees who are with us, because we know them and we associate with them, so we know where they're at, we give them permission to bathe at that time. But otherwise, in general, one should definitely take permission from one's spiritual master before bathing in Radhakund or Shamakund. Yeah. I mean, if that's a level, isn't it? The level, it's the level of having a spiritual master. So it would, in most cases, mean that you're initiated, or at least you're chanting pranam mantra, you're aspiring for initiation. There are conflicting issues for bathing in Radhakund. Please explain if and how we may bathe there. Well, I think we've covered that. You must get permission. And if you get permission, if you haven't got permission, if you can't contact your spiritual master, then you could try asking some other, like a god brother or god brother, say, of one's spiritual master, if he's willing to give permission. I don't know if he would or not, but definitely one should get permission from someone on that level. How can we serve Radhakund at our level? And especially when we're far from her now? Well, that's a nice question. We can serve Radhakund. It may sound very indirect, but we can serve Radhakund by preaching the process of devotional service and the process of chanting Hare Krishna. That's how we can serve Radhakund. Because Radhakund is the sacred place of Radharani and Krishna. Shamakund is there. So it's the sacred place of them. And, it's of just like super sacredness. So when we chant Hare Krishna, we are worshipping Radha and Krishna, who are the personalities of Radhakund and Shamakund. And when we do devotional service, we're serving Radha and Krishna. So that's what we can do, I would say, in a general sense. But otherwise, from time to time, if you're giving a class or if you're speaking amongst devotees, I wouldn't talk to non-devotees about it, But if you're discussing with devotees, then you could introduce some little point about Radha Kund, and in that way glorify Radha Kund. Even in South Africa or Russia or, America, some of you are in America or Mauritius. Right then, in chanting the holy name, how do we reach the stage of Shuddhanam? Is it sufficient to chant attentively without committing offenses? Well, in very simple terms, yes. But when you chant attentively and you try to not commit offenses, then what you are doing when you chant Hare Krishna, what you are actually saying to Radha and Krishna in the mantra, you are asking them, please engage me in your service. That's what you're saying. So therefore, if you're chanting nicely, which is what you're talking about, if you're chanting nicely, you will find so many opportunities for devotional service coming your way. You'll find them. And if you're chanting nicely, you'll find that when those opportunities come, that you're attracted to take them. Yeah. And if you're chanting attentively and not committing offenses or trying to not, that will mean, that's only really possible when one has a spiritual master. And when one has a spiritual master, he will engage you in the whole process of devotional service, generally, not simply chant, and that's all. It happens in some cases, but it's just super rare. All right, let's see. Which qualities must we develop to appreciate the holy places? And before we can do that, do we need to attain the stage of Shuddhanam? Well, in sort of different terms, I've already answered that. But to appreciate the sacred places, the first thing is to be in a very submissive service attitude and to be in the company of devotees who know those places and who can explain them appropriately to you. And then if you, in your very humble, submissive state of mind, in a real mood of service and worship, then you'll appreciate the sacred places greatly. And in order to do that, do you have to attain the stage of Shuddhanam? No, you don't. It's always nice if you can, but generally, for going to the holy dhams, going on pilgrimage, it's good. It's not essential, but it's good to at least be qualified enough that you'd be ready for initiation, for example. It doesn't have to be like that. But the idea is, it really helps if you're, reasonably nicely situated, regularly in devotional service, regularly chanting. This will help you when you go on pilgrimage. There is a question about people who are not devotees going with devotees to such holy places coming up. I'll talk about that shortly. But I'm saying what is best, really, if devotees want to go, is that first of all, they should either be initiated or at least have, roughly the qualification required for initiation. and then they should go with devotees who know about these things. Right. What is the topmost stage of chanting the holy name? Can it be achieved? Now that's a bit of a sort of, funny, unusual question, because, we did talk about this. The topmost stage is Shuddha Nam, or the pure name, or the chanting of the pure name. The pure chanting of the pure name. You could say, which in Sanskrit is called Shuddha Nam. Yes. And of course it can be achieved. And that's why we are chanting 16 rounds. That's why we're practicing Krishna consciousness. Because step by step we hope to come to that point. And Prabhupada made it very clear that we can. And we should. Almost like we must, but definitely we should. So on a practical level, if I go to Mathura on earth and do devotional service in Mathura and then leave my body in Mathura, will I have a greater chance of entering Goloka? Is there a number of years required for doing that? Or is it related to the sincerity of heart of the devotee doing that in Mathura? The main thing, definitely by far, the main thing is the sincerity of heart. There's no doubt about that. Even if you're not in Mathura, even if you're in Durban, you're in Johannesburg, if you're in Moscow, etc., etc., these ordinary material places. But if you're practicing very sincerely, you will go back to Goloka from there. Yes. Whereas, I actually have known two people who were Brijbasis. They were born in Vrindavan. Means, they did some super special things before. But while they were living, and they lived in Vrindavan, but while they were living there, they did bad things. Some really terrible things. Sinful things. But they're thinking, yes, Brijbasi. But then when the time of death started coming upon them, the process of dying, which usually takes a few hours or something like that, then concerned relatives said, we must try and save this person. Take him to Delhi. Because in Vrindavan, they don't, at least previously, they didn't have they practically didn't have any hospitals, what to speak of good ones. But in Delhi, they had some, like up to any international standard hospitals. And so the person was taken out of Vrindavan and died in this hospital outside of Vrindavan. It's a bad sign, put it that way. So sincerity is the key. All right, so we're carrying on. Sometimes senior devotees say that going to the Dham when you have service in your home yatra is sense gratification. But I feel that I need these trips to the Dham for inspiration. What's the balance, or what to do? Well, it's a good question, and I don't know if I mentioned the other day, I think I did, that when Srila Prabhupada would visit, like when he would visit London where I was, then there were a number of devotees who had services in other temples. Like even myself, maybe you've heard the story I've told before. When Prabhupada, it was 73, Janmashtami Day, and Prabhupada was going to install Radha Gokulananda. I was temple commander in our temple in Berry Place in central London. And, everybody wanted to go to be with Prabhupada, but it was Janmashtami. It's a big festival day, and many people would come to that temple in central London. So the temple president, who's a really wonderful devotee and a very dear friend of mine, a senior to me, he said, "One of us will have to stay to see the program goes on in the central city temple. Take a guess who had to stay." I had to stay. So, because I had that responsibility, it was service to Prabhupada. So, at the same time, as you say, to go on pilgrimage is important. Everyone should go on pilgrimage properly, as we've said, in proper association when the devotee who wants to go, when they're ready enough, like that. Everyone should go. But don't abandon your prescribed services to the Lord. Oh, no, that's not good. That's not very good at all. It's just not very good at all. Work it out with the authorities, and in South Africa generally the authorities, they're sort of considerate enough that they will help you make some arrangement so your services are covered nicely, and then you can go without having to worry, who's going to do my service. So here's the question I mentioned, that now devotees have begun inviting groups of non-devotees or very new devotees to Vrindavan. But these people who have been invited don't understand the greatness of the Dham and may see the flaws. So is such a trip good for them? Good question. Good question. I wouldn't recommend taking any sort of just like outright non-devotees. But if they're going to be really nicely supervised, if they already have some attachment to Krishna consciousness, like if they're friends of the movement, they're attending programs and so on like that, and if the program is going to be very well organized, then let us say it is not impossible. But watch out, because I've seen some devotees, practicing devotees, coming back from Vrindavan, having had a bad experience, and really with a bad attitude towards Vrindavan, and that's a big no-no. So 2 more. What does it mean to place Vrindavan in the heart? And then you answer your own question, or you try to. Anyway, it's nice. It doesn't mean to constantly remember the places in Vrindavan on this planet. Or is it about the mood? Or is it about remembering Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan? Well, I would say, first of all, it's about the mood of service. Not about the mood of, something to do with Vrindavan as such, specifically, but the mood of serving Krishna, serving Prabhupada, serving the devotees, and playing a meaningful part in the Krishna consciousness movement. That sort of service attitude, that's the essence of Vrindavan. What is Vrindavan? It's a place of service. And what are the pastimes? The pastimes are simply their interactions and different happenings in which service happened in different ways. And Krishna reciprocated with that service in different ways. It's definitely not like just sort of having fun. Krishna and the gopis having fun. Krishna and the cowherd boys having fun. They have fun. They definitely have fun. But the idea of the gopis, the idea of the cowherd boys, and all the other Brijbasis, even the animals and the plants, when they're engaged in some exchange, some pastime with Krishna, their attitude is, how can I please Krishna here? That's the attitude. Not just like, ha, 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 we're having a good time. Although funny things happen, Krishna jokes. The devotees joke something about what's happened in the pastime. And they laugh because it is funny. But underlying and just sort of pervading everything is the mood and in fact activities of service for the pleasure of the Lord. So like I said, for a person to be ready to go on pilgrimage for the first time, they have to, it's really best at least if they've developed some Krishna consciousness and they have some sort of like stability to some degree in Krishna consciousness. And then they must go in the best association possible. But otherwise, yes. Taking this into account as like the foundation, but to remember the pastimes, the places, that's very nice. To talk about these things amongst the devotees, it's very nice. It's all very nice. But the foundation has to be the service attitude, the mood. So last question. There are 3 holy places, Puri, Mayapur and Vrindavan. For some devotees, Puri or Mayapur are more dear than Vrindavan. Is this normal, or all devotees should put Vrajadam in the first place in their hearts? No, it's fine. It's okay. It's okay. But still, you should bear in mind, you should at least know, Vrindavan is special. And one should visit Vrindavan sometimes in a mood of deep, deep respect and veneration, knowing this is the most sacred place. And Mayapur is special because it's like a replica of Vrindavan. It's not exactly that Vrindavan's a replica of Mayapur. Yeah, it might be possible to say something along those lines. But actually, Vrindavan, Prabhupada would say that Vrindavan is my home and Mayapur is my place of worship. So, but if you find Puri nicer, if you find Mayapur nicer, that's fine. That's good. Rupa Goswami, let me close by saying something that he said. Yena kena prakarena mana Krishna naveshayet. Means, in this way, in that way, in some way, but in any way, somehow, mana Krishna naveshayet. Always remember Krishna, whatever it takes. So if you remember Krishna better in Puri, that's nice. If you remember him better in Mayapur, that's fine. Okay, devotees. Let me just check. Yeah, those are our questions. Interesting subject matters. I hope you found the answers interesting and helpful. So, there we go. And tomorrow we move on to verse 10. And we're almost there. We've almost finished Nectar of Instruction. So, thank you all very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.